What's up? Welcome to the Sharp Mind Show, episode 6. Let's say it is Saturday, right? Bright and early on Saturday, right? So, I'm Nate, the Fit Future MD, your host. This show is brought to you by Insercell.com. Pick you up a cool inspirational t-shirt today because what you wear matters, right? Influence others around you to have happier, better lives with Insercell.com. So, as you know, I'm a life coach, so today we're going to start with the quote of the day, right? And it's discipline is the bridge between the life you want and the life you have, right? And this really comes down to what life do you actually want, right? Um, for some people, that's what they already have, right? Got tired of that, but for some people, that's the life that they already have, right? So you're not going to see them do anything extra, to get any higher in life, right? They're going to work their job, they're going to work their 8 hours, they're going to come home and take care of their house and their kids, and that's going to be it, right? They're not going to be trying to be financially free. They're not going to be trying to, they're okay with their car payments. They're okay with being in debt. Like nothing's pressuring them to get any higher in life, right? So it really just comes down to what you really want, right? So when I did this exercise, I was in medical school already when I did this exercise, right? I started looking at these doctors and what life they really had, right? And I saw that the divorce rate was 50%. When that's one of the number one things that I wanted was a good loyal wife, right, in my life that I didn't have to worry about, that you could trust 100%, that kind of thing, right? I'm not saying I wouldn't have had that as a doctor. I'm just saying that the divorce rate was 50%, right? So going into that career, you already knew that you're already 50 chance, you're already a 50-50 chance anyway, but knowing going into that was going to be tougher, right? Because you were going to be spending more hours on your patients than you are going to be on your relationship, right? So that was number one. Number two, you saw a lot of depression. You saw a lot of suicidal things. But you had the other end, right? They had nice houses, nice cars, beach house, that kind of thing. How many years did it take them to get there, right? That kind of thing. Well, so it really came down to what life you really wanted. And I determined that, that wasn't really the life that I really wanted, right? Now, I will say that, I wanted to definitely be by the beach, right? So I lived in the Caribbean, and the Caribbean is beautiful, and as, going to medical school in the Caribbean, I didn't really get to enjoy it as much as I would have liked, but, now I get to enjoy it almost every day. I get to enjoy the beach. We get to go to the beach whenever we want to, so it's about what life do you really want. And so this kind of brings me in to the next thing, which is waking up early on Saturday is where your money is made in your market, right? So, what is our goal here to being financially free, right? Our goal is to find individual stocks that outperform the market, right? So what are we doing on a Saturday, to try to find that, right? So number one, we're using scanners, right? We're looking at what what part of the market is hot, right? So right now, AI, quantum computing, anything of that nature is hot right now in the stock market, right? So we're looking for, things like that in the market right now. Obviously, growth companies are going to grow more than a regular company, right? Therefore, their stock price grows. So they're going to grow their revenue. They're going to grow all their, earnings per share. All that stuff's going to be growing, right? And that's what we're kind of looking for when we wake up on Saturday, right? Also, so I also run, InterSale. So on Saturday, I'm thinking about, okay, well, what do we got to do this week for InterSale? Is there anything that I can do to help InterSale be more successful this week? What are the three big tasks I need to do for InterSale this week? Can I do them today, or do I need to do them during the week, right? So I'm thinking about my business, waking up early on Saturdays. So the biggest thing is that a lot of people wake up and that they don't actually do anything extra when they wake up. They're just waking up to sit around, drink their coffee, scroll on social media. Like I say, I'm up early, doing research for this video today, right? I'm up early recording this video, right? I'm actually up early working, right? I'm not, it's not here. This goes back to the discipline part, right? So I'm able to wake up early. I was up before the alarm even went off, right? To wake me up today, right? And that's every day of my life. I'm up before the alarm, so when you think about what you really want, and then you add in discipline, waking up early is easy. It's the easy part, right? So keep that in mind, guys. You wake up early on Saturdays. You can sleep in on Sunday if you want, but you can also wake up on Sunday early. But there is a time where your body actually needs to rest. So, Arnold Schwarzenegger says to sleep faster, right? So, but you can't go on 5 hours of sleep, but for so long, right? But in a season, you can do it as long as you need to in a season, right? So, if you're trying to level up your life, you're saying, okay, I'm tired of being this person that's making under the average salary. I'm tired of being this person that doesn't have a skill set that they're looking at to move up. I'm tired of being that. Then, you have to have discipline. You have to wake up early on Saturday to do the work that you need to do to make whatever your dreams happen, right? What life do you really want, right? All right, so this episode is brought to you by London and the Googly Goo, right? This is my wife's book. It's a children's book. It's got a great moral to it. Check it out in the description below if you haven't already. If you've got a niece, nephew, someone that likes children's books, that would get good use out of children's book, make sure you hit that up in the description below. I really appreciate the support. And on to the next one. All right, so the big story from yesterday is that Tesla offers Elon Musk $1 trillion as an incentive package to be their CEO, right? So you see something like this, you're like, holy moly, my man is already the richest man in the world, right? So what do you offer the richest man in the world to work for your company? I guess you offer him to continue to make him the richest man in the world, right? So $1 trillion is pretty crazy. But, like I say, he already got paid by Tesla $55 billion to go, to 100x the company, which is what he did. And, like I said, the courts fought him being paid the $55 billion. So I can only imagine what the courts are going to do when they try to pay him $1 trillion, right? But it also helps him to be on the board of Tesla, right? So he can kind of, I don't know if he can kind of vote for that or not, but it's definitely the richest offer any CEO has ever had, right? The biggest question is if what he's planning on doing with Tesla, is it worth giving him $1 trillion if he executes this? So I became bullish on Tesla probably about a year ago when they started talking about robotics, right? And robo taxis, and and it was actually looking more like they were actually going to be able to actually pull it off, right? Because he's been promising this kind of stuff, since probably 2018. But now you're starting to see this kind of stuff become reality, right? And so I became bullish on that. It's really the only robotics company that is publicly traded that you could actually purchase shares in, right? So, and luckily for me, when I started buying it, it was down because he was doing this stuff with Donald Trump and doing Doge and all that kind of stuff. So it wasn't in the value investment stock range that I normally go for, but it was in the growth stock potential, and it was down, right? So, but Tesla has been having a decline in revenue and earnings, a 2.7% drop in Q2 of 2025, and a 53% in earnings per share decrease. Right, so that's definitely like concerning when you start investing in the company, right? Because they're supposed to be a growth company and they're not actually growing, right? But most of their revenue comes from the car side right now, and it's really them. Can they get these other sources of revenue, up and running before they run out of money, right? And then obviously, they're such a big company now, they probably could get all kinds of bank loans and stuff too. But and they also could just sell more stock. But the biggest thing that you see is that free cash flow is still strong, right? So they got great cash generation, even though, earnings and revenue are going down, right? So, but tell me what you think in the comments below. If this man makes robo taxi cars that pick you up and drive you everywhere, and then robotics for your house where you don't have to do any chores in your house, if he does all three of those things and gets that done, is that worth $1 trillion? Let me know in the comments below if that's worth $1 trillion. Like I say, the company itself, I don't even think it's at the trillion mark right now. Let me look real quick just to tickle my fancy here. Let's see. Let's see what the market cap of Tesla is currently. Yeah, okay, so it's back over $1 trillion now, so that's great. So the market cap right now of Tesla is $1 trillion, a little over $1 trillion, and they're going to pay him $1 trillion. So that means they're wanting to at least 10x the trillion, right, and be a $10 trillion company, making it the biggest company in the world by far, right? So let me know what you guys think in the comments below. Is this if he gets the company to 10 trillion, is it not enough money? Is the package too low, right? Let me know what you think in the comments below. So off to my fourth and final story of the day. We're going to go with Astera Labs, right? So in most of my videos this week, I've been talking about value companies, right? This time, I'm going to be talking about what's called a growth company, right? And so a growth company has high revenue and earnings growth, and they're prioritizing expansion over immediate profit, right? So the biggest example of this in history was Amazon. Amazon went almost 18 years without turning a profit, right? Because they were investing everything they made to expanding the company, right? So that's one of the things about growth companies is that they're reinvesting profits into research, development, marketing, and expansion rather than paying out dividends. So, if you're trying to protect your money, you put your money into dividend stocks and get the dividend, right? But if you're trying to grow your money, like you're putting your money into what's called a growth stock, right? So, what about Astera Labs? What is Astera Labs? So Astera Labs designs, manufactures, and sells semiconductor-based connectivity solutions. So basically, you have these, chips in these data centers and all that kind of stuff, all this computing power, but you have to connect all that stuff together, right? So Astera Labs sells the products that goes into these places, for AI infrastructure. And, so as we saw from NVIDIA, right, you got one company spending over $10 billion to develop their AI infrastructure. And Astera Labs is what connects the AI infrastructure, right? So as AI continues to ramp up here, so does Astera Labs, right? So their revenue increased by 16% in the last quarter, and as long as they're building data centers, that revenue will continue to increase, right? Now, what's the negative of Astera Labs is the price, right? This is sitting at $191 a share, right? And that's up from $58 back in April, right? So it's already quadrupled up. So it's really is how much more growth can it actually have, right? Because it's grown tremendously. But the normal price before the drop, earlier this year was in the hundreds, 140. So it's gone up, you've gone from 140 to 190. So you're going up $50. Say it's at, it's only at 187 billion. Oh, hold on. That's not it. Okay, so it's only a $31 billion market cap, right? So it's a small cap company. So this thing, absolutely still has the growth potential that you would be looking for. It absolutely has the growth potential that you would be looking for in a growth stock, right? So let's say, so what's the point of me talking about this, right? It's talking about what is a growth stock. Growth stocks high revenue and earnings growth, reinvestment focus, it scales, right? So obviously you're talking about the stock market, they're already scalable, right? Most companies. They got high PEs, right? You're paying a high premium for it, and they have some kind of a competitive edge, right? I haven't deep dived long enough to figure out what the competitive edge is here, but I just wanted to give you an example of what a growth stock would be, right? But I guess the competitive edge would be that it's the only company. I don't know if it's the only company or that's doing the connection of the AI stuff or what. But that's pretty much it for today's episode. Let's say this episode, so I'm a life coach, right? So if you do the first thing, right, you figure out what you want in life. And you realize, like, hey, I don't know how to get here. A life coach is definitely like a good spot to start, right? Good place to start. It can give you the pathway to get to the life that you want, right? And I'm a life coach, so if you're interested in life coaching, make sure you click the link in the description to sign up for life coaching. If you have any questions, hit me up in the DM on Instagram. You can text me at 919-480-1370. No problem. I can't promise that I'll get to you immediately on that, but I'll do my best to get back to you as soon as I can, right? Obviously, most of my inquiries right now have been coming from Snapchat, so you can also follow me on Snapchat, and obviously I'll connect with you there. But yeah, I'm a life coach, so click on the link and let's start your life coaching journey, right? Let's get you to the life that you actually want to have. You know, stop dreaming and make it a reality, right? So it's also brought to you by InstaSale.com. Make sure you pick up a cool inspirational t-shirt from InstaSale.com because what you wear matters, right? And we'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.
Boom. Boom.